We're just pulling funny faces to the camera.
We're pulling faces. Good afternoon. Happy peak of the week. I won't say hump day. Peak of the week. Welcome to Cheryl and Donna TV. Keeping it real with you today with real life lessons, life strategies, all to help you live a better life, be the best version of you. And today we are talking about living life feeling like a fraud.
Yes.
Fraud.
We're continuing on with the same theme that we have been talking about for the rest of the week, just around really connecting with who you are, finding you if you've lost you, and sharing some of our stories. And we mentioned this, we touched upon it a couple of days ago, and we're talking about wearing masks, but we thought we'd had so many comments and interactions from people about this subject, we thought we're going to come back to it and spend a little bit more time talking about when you aren't really sure about who you are anyway, you don't really know which one's the real you, and you're pretending to be a certain person because inside you don't really like yourself, and also you're not sure if anybody else is going to like you, so you don't want to show them the real you, so you're just pretending all the time in case they don't like it, because you don't like yourself.
And the thing with this is to notice and observe about yourself is when this was me, and I was living like this for all of my adult life up to the age of being in my early 30s, I wasn't aware that that's what I was doing. So I wasn't going out every day thinking, I'm going to pull the wool over people's eyes, I want to lie to them. It wasn't that. I just disliked myself so much for some of the stuff that I'd gone through. And I felt so unhappy on the inside that when I was then acting as a happy person and putting the big smile on at work and being kind to people, it wasn't that I didn't want to be. It's just that I felt like a liar because I didn't feel happy on the inside. I didn't like who I was. I didn't like my life. I didn't like who I'd become. I didn't like what I'd allowed in my life. I didn't like the decisions I was making. I didn't like me. So then my thing is, how would anybody else like me? So then I felt like I was lying to them when I was being nice, because I was genuinely thinking, you're just not a nice person.
You've created this own story, haven't you, in your own head, Donna, based on fear, based on trauma, based on experiences. Of not feeling worthy, not feeling good enough. So you've created this story and be telling yourself that you're not a nice person, even though everybody else who meets you, one of your superpowers is like you've got this great energy that just attracts people towards you. But obviously at that point, there's a huge disconnect between that is what you're giving out and that's what people see, but because you don't believe it inside to your core, you just feel like you're faking it every day.
Or the opposite. And when you've got somebody at home who's telling you that you're horrible, that you're nasty, that you're selfish, that you're all these things, what he was saying was feeding into what I was. It's a bit like the chicken and egg, whichever one I believe first, I don't even know anymore. But that kind of fueled my imposter, and it made my inner critic even worse, because the worst things that you think about yourself when someone's then playing them back to you, which now I actually think I attracted that because I wasn't strong enough internally, but that's a whole other show. But it really does create then this whole fake, false identity that you feel you have. Like now I know when I go and I smile at people and, and I'm just me, nothing's actually really changed on the surface. This is the scary thing. People will not believe that's what was going on. But Cheryl and I were walking and talking this morning, weren't we, Cheryl? And I said, I'd go, and because I've always been in people-based roles, it was a lot of external energy of keeping people feeling motivated and happy and feeling cared for. But I would be doing that all day, and I'd get in and I'd close the door and I'd literally slide down the door. I was so exhausted with pretending to be happy and pretending it wasn't that I didn't care, the pretending that that's not a thing. I really cared about people. But when people are asking you all the time, how are you? And I was like, yeah, great. Yeah. All this. And then I'd get in and I was so exhausted with having to be that person. And I would literally say, and like Cheryl said, the more people say, God, you're so lovely, you're so warm, you're so caring. In my head, what I would say is, God, if only they knew what I was really like. Now, I don't know what I thought I was really like. I never followed that thought through, but that would be my reflex. If only they knew what I was really like. Because I just thought I'm a horrible lying person because I'm not telling them how I am really. Nobody knows how I am really, what's really going on in my head. So for me, that then fueled this thing that I'm a horrible lying person. And that's like how the cycle went for me, wasn't it, Cheryl? For years and years and years.
Well, you believe, so the imposter, you started to believe that the imposter, what it was telling you, was true. And when you're getting some evidence, you know how our brains work, our brains are designed to prove ourselves right. You'd form beliefs about yourself. You've tuned into your imposter of telling you you're this horrible person. Then we look for evidence to prove ourselves right. You've then got yourself into a relationship with somebody who's confirming your beliefs.
Yeah.
That's the evidence you need to confirm that you're this horrible person. And then, as we know, we delete and distort. So all of the other evidence at work, when everybody's seeing all these different traits in you, even though they're telling you that, you just delete and distort it because that the belief that you formed about yourself isn't what they're saying.
And I was just in God, they believe the fakeness, they believe the story, they believe the, So tell me, guys, I know there's some of you dialed in today. Who else have you ever felt like that? Have you ever, because the thing we really wanted to get home for you today is when you're in that cycle of feeling like everything's hard work, of feeling like you have to force yourself to be a certain person around someone, playing the chameleon game, that's how you know that you're not in alignment with who you truly are, because it shouldn't feel like hard work to be happy. It shouldn't feel like hard work to be yourself. It should feel easy, just like swimming downstream, whereas I always felt like I was swimming upstream against the current, trying to be something that I wasn't. Turns out the somebody that I am is actually a really happy, loving, caring person, and I understand that now. So the outside reflects the inside now, rather than the inside telling one story and me inner imposter critic and all my baggage that was coming with it telling me that I was a lying, horrible you-know-what. Now I get that actually that was always me. I just had so much internal inner stuff to deal with that I couldn't ever see that. Well, not for a long time, I couldn't see that.
And I think for me, when I was in my teens and early 20s, before I became a mother, I didn't have any thoughts that I didn't really think about it, if that makes sense. I didn't think about if I was a nice or I was a horrible person, or if I liked myself or I didn't. It's not something that I was aware of, but I was just a bit all over the shop, lost a bit all over the shop. So, and then when I looked at some of the ways I behaved, just in terms of respect for me, respect for other people, your actions speak louder than your words, don't you? So how I then treat myself and others would then reflect back that actually I didn't feel like a nice person, or think I was a very nice person, even though I wasn't consciously thinking about it. My actions were reflecting that back. So I would more say I was just a bit all over the shop. I mean, I
don't think you do in your 20s, do you? I don't think like in my 20s I was thinking, God, I'm not a nice person. It was just that I just felt drained being the person that I felt I had to be to get through life. That was what I became aware of, how tiring it was to be that person.
Where I just didn't. I was just I didn't even care enough to be a certain person. I was just kind of just doing my own thing, really, not really thinking about it. But definitely not really knowing who I was, or understanding what my values were, or living by them, or any of that stuff. Like that all came in the 30s.
Yeah, definitely. So I think and we speak to a lot of clients when we first meet them, and it might not be as extreme as how I felt, but there is a lack of them knowing who they really are. There's like a lack of, you might not like, when you actually go, do I like my life? Do I love my life? Do I jump out of bed and want to live every day? Do I like who I am? It's about almost starting to ask yourself those questions. Sometimes how it manifests is you get headaches, you get a lot of stomach ache, you're living with a lot of anxiety. So sometimes there's physical symptoms, isn't there, first, that you're used to living with, that are like indicators, because your physical symptoms are indicators of your emotions sometimes as well. So it's like tuning into how are you feeling in your body, just in general, as you go through your life every day.
Yeah. And I think by, consciousness is everything. So the more aware you can become of tuning in and how you're feeling, it's just really starting to notice if you feel like a fraud in certain scenarios, if you feel like you're not being yourself, or you're afraid of people judging you and they won't like who you are because you've got some of those thoughts yourself. Just try to understand who that's with. I've had times where I've behaved in a different way when I've been in one circle of friends to then being more myself in another circle of friends. So sometimes in different relationships, different kinds of people or situations or scenarios or family members or work members trigger something in us, don't they? And then we feel like we have to be different. We're not being ourselves with certain people or scenarios. So it's really tuning into what that is and asking yourself why.
Yeah, exactly. So when the first thing is, when do you not feel like you? So who is you, obviously, but when do you not feel like you? When are you almost putting on a show? Because that's what you think people expect to see, which was kind of where my awareness started. Was I was aware there was this show that was me and it didn't feel like it was me. So there was definitely that disconnect. And then go, right, well, when does that happen? Like, when am I just me? When does just me happen? And really understanding that it was definitely a work environment issue going on for me. And there was definitely some people, some circles of friends that just weren't working for me in that way. So there's different things, and just raising your awareness of when do I just feel like I can just be myself, whoever that is, and what goes on when I'm not being me, what's triggering me to behave differently, to put on the show, call it, and act in a way that doesn't, I knew sometimes I'd act in a way that I just thought I don't actually like myself when I'm doing that. If people, when I was much younger, I don't like gossip. So if people would gossip and you're aware that you maybe joining in because you're thinking, well, I'm not strong enough not to be in this group of friends at work or whatever. And then you come away and you think, I don't like that. I feel like I need a wash afterwards. That's just not who I am. And so certain things like that, I was just aware that that's definitely not who I am. So, and you can't really move on to the stage that Cheryl and I really want you to be at, which is loving and accepting yourself, really loving yourself, if you don't know who you are. So our journey is always about finding out who it is that you are.
Who it is, and the word there is about acceptance. We all adapt ourselves in certain situations and behave differently in certain situations. That's just life. But at the core, it's about getting to know yourself, as Donna said, and really accepting about who you are and having love for yourself, because it all starts from within. Once you feel that you love yourself and you've accepted who you are, you're much more likely to then feel comfortable just being who you are, no matter what circumstance or friendship circle that you're in, because you're not afraid of being judged. You're not afraid of people not liking you because you like you. When we're afraid that other people won't like us or love us, it's because we're projecting judgment, because that's how we feel about ourselves.
Exactly. So when he's just saying, I'm pretty good at being me, but find myself going quiet when people around are in big fear around COVID, or taking a very medicalized view of health and vaccination, which exactly, because Wendy, you are a homeopathic healer. So it sometimes feels like too big a battle to argue what I truly believe. Yeah. And I totally get that. I think it's about, so it's not my job to go out into the world and make sure that everybody believes the things that I believe. That's not where I kind of come from. I did used to do that, because I then went to the point where I felt like I was being fake if I didn't say everything that was on my mind to everybody, and I wasn't. like I went the other way. I went from keeping everything to myself to feeling like I had to share everything that was on my mind all the time. Otherwise, I was being equally fake. But it's just about that balance of you being aware. So if I'm around people who don't share my views, I'll often just change the subject, or I notice that it's triggering me. And I just think, well, don't judge them. That's their views. Who's to say that I'm right? Send them a bit of love and let them get on with it. But it takes time to balance.
Yeah. But I would, Wendy, just if you will allow me to just pick up some of your language. So you've said it feels too big to battle and to argue. So they're not two positive words that you've got associated with with that. So
People have a different
if you feel
opinion.
like you're going into a battle or an argument with people who have a different opinion, then so there might be just some reframe there of for you to talk about how you feel and what your views are. Does it have to be a battle and an argument? I don't know, but just to reflect that back to you.
One of the approaches I always love for those scenarios is just to remain in neutral. So rather than, again, going from my beliefs are right and theirs are wrong, or they're forcing their beliefs on me, the person who I always sort of handled this amazingly well was Lorna. And some of you remember Lorna. She did a lunchtime live for us a few weeks ago, talking about like how she left corporate, and she's incredible with this stuff. And I used to watch her in a corporate environment, and somebody would come in with like an opinion that was so left of field that I'd be sitting thinking, shut up, I don't know what you're talking about. And Lorna would sit and go, that's a really fascinating view. Talk to me about that. Where does that come from? What's it? Did it genuinely with this curious approach, with no judgment of whether their opinion was right or wrong. And it almost didn't matter, but it really helped, because her view was always, I want to understand where they're coming from, because there could be something in that. And I just always found it fascinating, and I learned so much from that approach. Rather than sitting with them, here you go again.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to engage because of your hard work, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
definitely. So yes.
Maxine's saying, oh, sorry, Cheryl. Maxine's just saying, so true. Love yourself before anyone else can love you. And I'm not saying that we don't love other people. Like, of course, we love other people. But the love I'm able to demonstrate now, and the depth of caring and the depth of warmth and the depth of understanding that I show people now is so different. Now that I actually really like myself when I look in the mirror in the morning, when I do my affirmations and I do my mirror work, I really mean it. And I was laughing this morning because I smile and laugh when I'm doing my affirmations, not in like a way, but like in a way that I mean it when I say like I love the person that I'm looking at. Because if I don't, I can't expect anybody else to join in.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes. So for those of you who are watching this on playback, we'd still love you to interact and give us your comments of your views on today's subject. Tomorrow it's our birthday, so we're going to be reflecting, spending the time just reflecting on the last 2 years and the journey that we've been on. So it'll be a little bit different tomorrow. So yeah, I think I might just like get some balloons behind me head somehow, stick them to the wall. Who knows?
Like happy birthday things.
So, yeah.
Join us, share it with everybody. We'd love you to come and join us tomorrow. Cheryl and I are going to be reflecting on some of the really pivotal moments. Might be a little bit longer tomorrow, to be fair. Some of the really pivotal moments, some of the joy, some of the big lessons that we've learned, anything we'd pay forward. So it's going to be a good one. We're really looking forward to it.
Yes. And before you go, if you're not in the Soul System in our community, please make sure you join. We'll put the link in the comments, because we've got something really exciting that we are going to be launching next week. So our community gets to hear about our things first. So if you're not in the Soul System, join up. It's a good gang over there.
It's tomorrow. It gets launched tomorrow. The first reveal is tomorrow, Cheryl.
Yes, the first reveal is tomorrow. Yeah.
So, and we'll be posting in the Soul System, and also if you're in our community with email, you'll be hearing about it there in the morning. So keep your eyes peeled.
Yes. Have a fabulous Wednesday, and we'll see you
Send
tomorrow.
Bye, guys.